Today I'm going for our first run in the Nike Turbo Shield. 7.03 miles, 9 minutes, 20 seconds per mile today, taking it nice and easy in between marathon training blocks, still recovering from the last one. And in just a little bit, I'll be getting ready for the next training block. But until then, I'm just gonna try to keep the heart rate low, paces down. But I was able today to take out the Nike Turbo Shield for the first time, and this is an exciting shoe. But before I get to my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over a couple of disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that I bought with my own money. No one sent the shoe to me. No one's paying me to wear the shoe or make this video, and no one's going to get a chance to see any of this footage before you guys get a chance to see it on YouTube. Now, with the disclosures out of the way, let's talk about the Nike Turbo Shield. Now, this is certainly one of the most unusual shoes that I've ever worn, not just because it's a high top running shoe. I've run in other high top running shoes before, winter running shoes. In fact, last year I ran in the Under Armour CGR mid, and I actually really liked running with the mid top. I found that for the most part, I didn't really notice, especially in cold temperatures, that I had the mid top. But when it got snowy, when things got up to my ankles, times when snow or cold slushy water might get into your ankle, it just kind of stayed out, or it stayed out that much easier when you were dealing with the cold temps. Now with the Under Armour CGR mid, that was like a knit material that they used. So when you did get water on your ankles, yes, the water didn't like gush into your shoe, but it absorbed. This on the Turbo Shield, everything is like a weird neoprene type of material, and so what I was expecting was that it would do a better job of keeping the water out, and today it certainly did. Now in terms of getting in the shoe, there's just a lot going on here. There are 3 different pull tabs, one on the back, one on the other part of the back, and one on the front. And the way you get into the shoe is you're gonna undo this velcro strip here, get at the zipper, and then inside there's no laces. Everything's just elastic. You've got like an outer neoprene booty and an inner neoprene booty. There's a little bit of a midfoot cage that helps keep your foot in place. And this part is also Velcro. So you can tighten that once you get your foot in there. Undo it to get your foot in. Once you get your foot in there, you can tighten it to get it really snug down. I didn't have any problem running with this particular shoe in this setup. All the Flyknit shoes that I ran in mostly last year, they all fit me really well, and you kind of tied the laces a little bit, but most of the fit and the snugness came from the Flyknit material itself, and I didn't have a problem with any of the Flyknit shoes or the Vaporfly Flyknit 4% that I ran in a lot this year as well. Same thing here. I didn't feel insecure at all. I felt great running in the shoe. And the fit wasn't a problem. The only thing that was a problem from this laceless design was that I couldn't figure out where to put my Stride foot pod. And normally I would think, well, I just put it on the elastic straps that are underneath right here. But because there's this outer layer on top that's zippered shut, what ended up happening was anywhere I wanted to put the foot pod is right underneath where this zipper was. So that was a little bit of an issue. I tried clipping the foot pod to the back heel tab here. That didn't work. It gave me weird readings and weird results. So ultimately I just had to kind of turn it off or stop my watch from connecting to it, and I was able to run, but I wasn't able to get data from my foot pod. So if that's something that's critical to your training, I'll keep trying and thinking of a way to put a foot pod on this thing, but I just don't know that there is a way to put it in the area you need to put it, which is the forefoot, in order to make that foot pod work well. So that's one caveat for those of you guys who are using foot pods. Now, in terms of the way that this feels, it's a Turbo Shield. And before this, I'd run in 3 other versions of the Turbo 1, the Gyakusou Turbo, and the Turbo 2. And even though they have the same midsole combination of ZoomX foam and React foam and the same outsole, each of those shoes felt very different to me, and a lot of that had to do with the upper. So when I came to this shoe, was expecting to feel something very different as well, even though, again, it's the same React and ZoomX combination. And I think for a lot of that differences in feel and a lot of the differences in feel of running with those prior versions of Turbo, the upper makes a big difference for whatever reason on this midsole outsole combination. This one felt most to me like running in the Gyakusou Turbo, where it wasn't as snappy as, say, the Turbo 1, and it wasn't quite as lightweight as the Turbo 2. So it was a little bit more like relaxed, like the Gyakusou Turbo was, and so that's a little bit of what I'm feeling in this shoe. Certainly I was able to go faster in this shoe. When I was trying to keep the heart rate down, my feet kept wanting to go a little bit faster because the shoe does tend to want to go a little bit faster, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. And in terms of the weight from having all this extra material, all the materials are lightweight, so while it does weigh more than like a regular Turbo that doesn't have all this other stuff going on, I didn't feel like it was heavy in any way. The weight is also distributed up your ankle a little bit higher, and so in terms of balance, I didn't feel like it was a heavy or a clunky shoe by any means. The one thing that I will say is that for this, you do want to wear a taller sock. I wore kind of like my regular summer socks with this just to see how that would do. And when I'm running at the slower paces, like I was mentioning before, some of the funniness of my running gait kinds to get exacerbated, and I definitely felt that here. And so when I'm running a little bit slower, my left foot tends to kick out just a little bit more, and what that ended up was my foot, I think, rotated a little bit through the gait cycle, and that ended up getting a little bit of chafing right around this outer edge here. So if I had a taller sock, I think that would have helped. But in the wintertime, if you're running with this for cold weather, that taller sock is something that you're probably going to have anyway, so hopefully that won't be a problem. Now, in terms of prior Shield shoes that I've run in other Pegasus Shield shoes, the 33, the 34, and the 35 Shield versions, and I've generally loved the upper material and the treatments that they've done to the uppers. They do a really great job of keeping excess moisture out, protecting your foot from icy, slushy, snowy conditions. Now, we didn't have any of that today to play around with in Chicago. It's still only October, and hopefully we won't get any snow in October in Chicago this year. But today I was able to run along the lake, get my feet wet a little bit, see how that goes. And for the most part, the kind of run that I did today, if I ran in like a regular Turbo or a regular running shoe, by the time I got home, when I take my shoes off, I can usually see my footprints as I kind of walk around the house after I take my shoes off, because my socks are soaking wet. It's not something that normally bothers me. It's just, I don't know, it never bothers me. But today I noticed when I took my shoes off of here, my feet were pretty dry. No footprints to follow me around as I was walking around the house. My feet were a little bit damp though, and I think that's because at some points when I was running through the water, it did come over my ankle, and I definitely felt that today. And so I think I got a little bit of moisture in the shoe, but because of the dual layers, anything that does get in there, whether it's sweat, heat, water, or snow, it is going to kind of stay in there. So kind of a double-edged sword when you're dealing with mid-top shoes. But overall, I like the choice that they've given the Turbo this mid-top. And not only do I think it looks fantastic, by the way, I do love the color choices here, just enough black for me. And I do think that the mid-top up here, especially with this collar, is going to do really well come the colder and the coldest months in Chicago. The other thing that we're seeing here that we started seeing last year with the Shield versions is kind of like this overlapping like rubber like gasketing or overlays. So anywhere there might be seams on the shoe, there is this kind of rubberized treatment that goes on. And there's also a lot of like overlapping of the rubber pieces as well. So all these things that are designed to keep moisture out. Now, in terms of keeping moisture out, for the most part, if you live in a warm climate or it's getting warmer in the part of the world where you live, I'm not sure that you need this shoe, especially at its price, $210, which is just ridiculously expensive for this shoe. But if you're dealing with cold and wet, or even just cold, I think this is going to be a shoe that will help you in the winter months in keeping your feet warm. Now, again, at that $210 price, just looking for a warm shoe isn't reason enough to buy this. You've got to really be buying into both the Turbo in terms of a shoe that you like running in, and also the design as something that you're willing to pay a premium for. So as just a pure like bang for buck winter running shoe, I don't think this is a great value. But if you like what you're seeing here and you want a winter running shoe and you like the Turbo, then I think that this is something that you should certainly consider. I know that I'm going to enjoy a lot of winter running miles in this shoe. This year I'm going to be doing a lot of more intense training during this winter than I normally do. Normally most winters I'm not training for a marathon. And so I'm just kind of getting out there and getting whatever miles in that I can and enjoying running a little bit more casually. This year I'm going to be a little bit more focused. So having the Turbo Shield is pretty much exactly, I think, what I needed. The only thing that I'm concerned about and the only thing that I couldn't test, while I could test kind of slippery conditions by running through water, it did fine. I don't know that it did substantially better or worse than, say, a regular Turbo in those kinds of conditions. But I am concerned that this outsole pattern is still pretty much the same Turbo outsole pattern that we've seen in the past. It's been treated a little bit differently, and Nike says that they've put that kind of like extra grippy kind of treatment to it that they've done. And they mentioned this kind of language when they released the 33 and the 34 Shield. I don't remember seeing the same exact language when they released the 35 Shield, but something about it is like an extra grippy, I don't know if it's like a surface spray layer or if it's something that's embedded in the rubber itself. I'm a little bit hesitant when it comes to slush and running on this, when it comes to icy conditions. Now, if it's like full on ice, no running shoe is really gonna do you well. And another thing that I will be testing this winter is taking like trail shoes out that are not necessarily winterized, but running with those with, you know, thicker socks, other things that I can do to protect my feet, and testing that out as well. So there'll be some comparisons coming up, but going into the colder months, the outsole tread is going to be my biggest concern. But I'm also very lucky where I run in Chicago along the lake for the most part, to the extent that they can. The parts that I ran today are going to be plowed and salted. That doesn't mean I'm running on completely dry pavement all winter long. I certainly have to run through slush and icy, not complete hard ice, but like icy and slippery conditions. And sometimes, you know, they just can't keep up with the weather and you have to run through what you got to run through. But for the most part, I'm not running like up a mountain and trails where I've got like 6 inches of snow that I'm contending with. I don't think that this would do very well in those kinds of more intense winter conditions. But for winter running, the kind that I do, where I'm mostly still on pavement, but still having to deal with winter conditions, I think this will be okay. I'll definitely be following up because I'll be putting a lot of miles into this shoe over the next couple of months. So stay tuned for that. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed so you can know when those updates come out. So that's all I have to say about the Turbo Shield. Let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions. I'd love to talk to you guys a little bit more down there. Before I go, I want to talk about the charity runner for this week. This week, it's Adalto Castrejón. He's going to be running the New York City Marathon coming up in just a couple of weeks. And he's raising money for the New York Roadrunners Team for Kids, an organization that helps put together programming and introducing children and youth to the joys of and benefits of running. I was happy to donate $70 to Adalto's fundraising efforts, and I'll post a link in the description in case you'd like to learn more. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?